welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I am, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 108th episode, our returning guest is Jonathan Fowler. You first heard Jonathan Fowler on episodes 2, 10, 20, 21, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34, 35, 43, 48, 51, 56, 64, 74, 83, 92, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, and episode 82, also featuring regular guest Ash Burgess of the podcast. Jonathan graduated with a BA in history from Indiana University in 2006. He is an unabashed left-wing political junkie. He has lived and worked in South Korea for over 10 years, trying to help the citizens of that great nation, hopefully, talk pretty one day. And if you listened to the last two episodes, you heard us talk about the first two episodes of The Wire. On this episode, we'll be discussing up through episode 9 of season 1. So consider this your blanket spoiler alert. And now on to the show.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, what's up, Bob?
Oh, nothing much. Just trying to keep the devil in the hole. You know how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a 24-hour job.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. So, this is a special episode.
Yeah, it is.
We're talking about The Wire here.
Mm-hmm.
HBO.
Yep. At least the first 9 episodes of it, so.
First 9 episodes of the first season, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for my money, it's one of, if not the best show ever made. And Bob is acclimating, from what I understand.
I'm getting there. Slowly but surely. I've been watching about 2 episodes a night since we last talked here, so yeah.
I'm getting back into it, man. I can't just watch one episode right now. I gotta watch 2 or 3.
Yeah, they definitely leave it on a cliffhanger pretty regularly, so.
Yeah. Wait till you get towards the end of this season, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think we've talked about in previous episodes, you had kind of tried to start this show once or twice before, and it didn't really take for you or something, but you didn't get very far in it.
Yeah, I think I'm about to where I was before, because I definitely remember certain scenes and episodes from previously, but it's about as far as I've been before, if not a little farther. So, but yeah, it's getting a little better. I feel like I need to immediately rewatch it though. In some ways, I don't even feel like I understand everything the first time. It's one of those things where the world of the show takes some getting used to. So it's almost like you need to go back right away. And I don't know.
If I were you, I'd rewatch it after you watch the whole thing, because at that point, you're going to have a perspective on the characters and where they go and their whole arcs and everything that you just can't get just from the first season. So. But I would say, I think back in 2014, you turned me on to Friday Night Lights, right? By just showing me the first episode or something.
Yeah. Well, that is another show that has its own universe.
That show is incomprehensible.
Right. It's just a Texas football, nothing else going on in town. It is a whole world, kind of like The Wire, you know what I mean? That's kind of like an unfamiliar territory to people that aren't from there or don't live in that world. So yeah, it does take some getting used to too, I guess.
Yeah. And they're talking a mile a minute in that first episode, and there's just not a lot of footholds you can get into there. So I think but I came back to it several months later after watching that first episode, and I went through it, and of course it's a great show and everything, and later on you become acclimated to the world there and everything and the people and stuff. I think The Wire is like that. Although I don't think the first episodes are that alienating or that kind of off-putting, I guess, but But I will say, I will admit, and I was talking to my mom the other night saying that we were watching the show, because this is a show that I turned my mom on to, too, and she loved it, which kind of surprised me, because she does not go in for all the violence and drugs and sex and necessarily all that stuff all the time, but she loved The Wire. She loved this show. She watched the whole thing, so. That's
funny. My mom was the same way with Breaking Bad. I never would have on purpose shown her Breaking Bad, but then she was like, have you seen this show, Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I have. Why are you watching it?
Yeah, every couple of years I go back and rewatch The Sopranos, and I think about putting my mom onto that, but I think that might be a bridge too far.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
I mean, there's no denying the intelligence of the show, the humor, the psychology, the philosophy, just all the. I mean, it's working on so many different levels and everything, of course. But just I don't think that she can get past probably the over the top violence, the stupidity, the callousness and everything. I just think there's a pretty high barrier to entry for some people for that kind of a show. But I don't know. She may love it. I mean, she liked The Wire, and The Sopranos is in a somewhat a similar vein as far as complex character study, etc.
Yeah, I can see the similarities there, but yeah, like I was saying to you, like I feel like there are certain things that they skip over, and I guess that it's like one of those things where it's like you get the context of what's going on, so you go and kind of reconstruct what you aren't shown, and you kind of create the world that way, but they kind of just throw you into certain things and kind of expect you to know why it's important, I guess. Like I was kind of using the basketball game as an example. Like that episode starts with Stringer Bell and Avon Barksdale like at the gym watching that one guy play basketball. We don't know why this is happening. We don't know anything about and then they talk about, oh, we need some money for something, and like the kid's manager or something. I don't know. It was just like, and then there's this basketball game later, and then of course like one of the cops says the other one, hey, what's going on? Oh, it's the West Side versus East Side basketball game for the Go Pride or whatever. Didn't you know? And I'm like, no, I didn't know. But they kind of just introduce things like you're supposed to know why they're important or supposed to have figured out what happened and why all the characters care, but they don't really tell you why right away. I mean, you kind of reconstruct it later, but you know what I mean? It's kind of like a cold water in the face, just to start with. But
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I think the whole show is like that to some degree in that, I mean, we're a couple of white guys from the Midwest, small town. What do we know about, inner city drug gangs and police efforts to combat them and stuff? I mean, like, we don't really know anything about any of it, so to speak.
True.
Aside from the fact that we're both pretty well versed in hip hop, going back for 20 years or so.
Yeah, so, I guess that's true.
I mean, insofar as that, whatever that gives us, but
right.
But the thing is, I don't think the basketball game is not really something that's going to come up again later, but like I was saying, I think it's just a way for them to introduce. I mean, number one, it's the first time the police have seen Avon Barksdale in person, right? And so that's a big moment. And it also introduces Proposition Joe, who is basically the leader of the east side of the town, who we haven't met yet, but that will become a thing later on, of course. And his character is going to get really deep too, and his family and his people and stuff, and what's going on there, and their rivalry with the West Side, which is what we've been seeing so far. And I mean, a lot of it's kind of a cliche to say at this point, but the city of Baltimore is kind of a character in this show, and so we're getting familiar with certain neighborhoods and certain socioeconomic demographics of the city and stuff, as far as mostly the police, a little bit about the higher ups in the police and the kind of the people who are functioning on the state level or the city level and stuff, and then also the drug people, both the users and the dealers and stuff, and the various hangers on, the strippers and the legitimate shop owners, and I mean, we're getting a huge, just a number of cross sections of the city and stuff, and that's only going to expand as we go further. And the second season, I think you'll be interested in, because the second season throws a lot of people for a loop, because it kind of takes a step back from the African American drug gangs and stuff, and it goes into a different criminal dynamic and stuff. Although these characters are still there. Like the first time I watched it, I felt like I was kind of thrown off by the second season. But then when I rewatched it again, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, all these characters are still there. This stuff is still going on. It's just not the primary focus the second time around. But they come back to it more in the third, fourth, and a little bit in the fifth season. I mean, I don't know. I'm excited for when you see all that. But this show has scope that, and, it only gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at the same time, it never loses sight of, like, the characters that you you hate to love, you love to hate, like all the characters that are, you get wrapped up in their stuff, and new characters that you're going to care about deeply have not even been introduced yet. And so there's just, there's a long way to go from here.
Yeah, that's probably true. So.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned on Facebook or whatever, like which characters are standing out to you so far?
I guess you want to start with the drug gangs, I guess, first.
Yeah.
I think, like I mentioned a little bit, I think Wallace, he's kind of a side character almost, but I feel like he's almost kind of the conscience of the show in certain ways. Like he's 16 years old. He's kind of, innocent in some ways. He's seasoned in other ways. I think it's like really like wreaking havoc on him psychologically, what he's seeing around him. He's also like has a connection to like the kids that he's taking care of or living with. He seems kind of like a older brother, kind of caretaker type character for them. So I think that his revulsion at what was the light-skinned guy's name that got killed on the hood of the car? What's his name?
Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon. When Brandon gets killed, that really messes him up. So you can kind of see him like deteriorating, and then you see him using drugs and kind of not getting out of bed and borrowing money from other people and not really participating in life. So you kind of see him dropping out. I don't know where his story's going exactly, but from what I've seen so far, it seems like he's kind of like it's like I said, the conscience of the show a little bit. So, but
yeah. What do you think about Brody and Poot, the other two young guys in the pit?
They're good. They seem a little bit naive as to how everything else works, I guess. Like, I don't know. They seem kind of willfully ignorant, or they're kind of like when, what's his name? The guy that got off for the murder. That's D'Angelo, yeah. When D'Angelo leaves Poot in charge, is it Poot that he leaves in charge of the pit when he goes off for a while?
Yeah.
That seemed like very childlike when he was like dancing on the couch. You're like, look at me, like, it's like these people, they're acting so tough and adult, but they seem so naive in other ways, you know what I mean? So but
he's been given a lot of responsibility just by happenstance, probably because Brody wasn't there. If Brody had been there, D'Angelo Barksdale probably would have given it to him.
Sure.
But he just happened to be there, and he's realizing that he's probably moving up in this organization, getting more trust, more responsibility, and more respect in some ways. So and I think that's like understandable in any organization or something. Like if your parents go out of town and they leave you in charge of your younger sibling or something, and your siblings, you're going to be like on a little bit of a power trip, right? I mean, it's like in any situation. So, and I think another thing that like the show is about, and I don't know. I don't want to delve too much into the cliches about the show. I mean, there's a lot of easy cliches that people spout off about the show whenever they talk about it, but is institutions and like the effects of the institution on the individual, whether that's the police department or the city government or, or the drug gang and stuff. I mean, like just, the incentives within these institutions, the internal logic of these institutions and stuff. And, it unlike any other cops and robbers show or anything like that I can imagine, short of perhaps like The Sopranos to some degree. I mean, this one really just shows you the kind of the motivations and the things that are, the inner workings of these groups, and how, status is achieved, how respect is achieved, how rank is achieved, and just what the motivations are and what the kind of the incentives are for these people to do what they do. And, I don't know. I think we saw that in that moment where Poot, he kind of jumps up on the couch and kind of dances on it there for a minute when he realizes he's in charge. So.
Yeah, definitely.
What about Brody and Carver and Herc, I guess, yeah. What about those three guys' dynamic?
Which ones are they? Remind me.
Those are the two police, the white guy and the black guy, that kind of like they'd rather just fuck people up, and they don't really want to use their brains on any of this.
Right.
They keep bumping heads with Brody because he ran away from the juvenile court thing and stuff. And,
right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, those guys are interesting. Those guys are kind of unsettling because, like I said, it seems like they're willing to not at least entertain the idea of being bad cops, at least, if not go over the line, cross the line with the slightest provocation.
Several times.
Oh, they do, and they don't seem to need much, prodding to do that. So even when they're acting quote unquote normal, it just could go wrong at any moment with the slightest bit of provocation or whatever. And it seems like they're just there for the thrill of the chase, the thrill of the hunt. When they chase that one guy who's bringing the re-up in to the pit, like that almost seemed like a lion catching a gazelle or something. It didn't seem more like a predator prey thing where they were just getting off on the thrill of the hunt. You know what I mean? As opposed to anything else that's supposed to be going on. So it's something animalistic, I guess, about their like predatory nature, I guess, that the job, I guess, brings out in them. So
yeah, well, I think there's all kinds of predators in the police side. On all sides there's all kinds of predators, obviously, but like I don't know. I think you'll find that like the other guys, take a certain joy in kind of like the slower hunt, the less physical hunt, but just kind of like nailing somebody dead to rights and stuff. Like I think you'll see that side with some of the other guys later. But like, but yeah, I think these two guys represent kind of like the brawn over brains kind of aspect of policing or whatever. They don't really want to learn. They're not like like we've seen kind of since they've started this detail or whatever, the wire detail, a lot of people got pushed in there, and like some of them were just kind of some really old drunks who they're like 6 months away from their retirement basically, and they're trying to find their way out the door, and they don't have the time or the energy to want to have to learn a new way of policing, which is what is kind of being pushed on them by, to some degree, Jimmy McNulty's own narcissism, I guess, that he, has kind of put this thing together by going and speaking to that Judge Phelan at the beginning, which kind of set the whole thing in motion.
Yeah, why does the side note, why does the judge like or want to help McNulty so much? Like, or think he's helping McNulty? It seems like every time he gets involved, he's actually screwing things up, but you know what I mean? Like, why is he so committed to like helping him or making things happen for him?
Well, I think I have a feeling that they had some sort of a prior relationship, a friendship maybe or something, although we get the sense that they don't really respect each other. He looks down at McNulty for being... I think he likes the prosecutor Perlman, the woman prosecutor there, who Jimmy's been banging for a little while. Yeah, well, that was the person he was cheating on his wife with, right? That's kind of implied. Yeah. Right. And so there's some kind of like back and forth over her, I think, as far as trying to impress her. But Jimmy doesn't seem to respect him. He just knows that this guy has the power to kind of outside of the police department itself, force the police department to take certain actions. And so he's using him in that way. And Jimmy, he uses a lot of people throughout the show. And I think Bunk, a couple episodes ago, Bunk Moreland kind of laid that out when he said, like, after they, Jimmy made Moreland tell the other detective that the evidence they had of a murder could not be used. And so that guy was going to have to take a non-clearance on a murder that he could clear, and Bunk had to tell him that. And then they went out and got drunk, and Bunk says to him, like, tell my wife I'm not coming home tonight. Make up some bullshit excuse. I lied for you today. You need to lie for me now. And then he goes to a woman's home and has sex with her, and then he goes in her bathroom and burns his suit. Or he tries to, anyway. It basically impossible for him to go home without and hold up Jimmy's excuse. And then, like, Jimmy takes him back to his place, and he's, like, sleeping on his kid's bunk bed or something. And he tells him, like, Jimmy, you're no good for people. Yeah. And I think that's a big line from the show. Yeah, but why does he say that, though? I mean, it wasn't his fault that he went and did that, was it? I mean... Well, I think that the point is that Jimmy's, uses a lot of people like Judge Phelan and stuff for his own ends, and he doesn't like them. He doesn't respect them. Their goals goals and needs don't meet up with his own, and he, finds a way to get his own needs met as far as like having the wire or making sure that the case doesn't get cleared for the other murder detective so that he can keep his wire going and stuff, and making Bunk lie to people and stuff. I just think like it's a deep character stuff. I mean, like, it's just like, they're friends and everything. They're good coworkers. They have a banter, and they have a great relationship with each other as far as professionally and everything, and interpersonally. But Jimmy's taking something out of him too, like he does for most people.
Right.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It's fascinating. I think so.
Yeah. He's also a terrible father. He keeps bringing his kids along to these things that really no child should be like anywhere near,
Yeah, he takes them, like with Omar, go to the morgue, like on a school night, and then he what does he do? He has them trail Stringer Bell in the mall.
Yeah, exactly, and he has his kid write down the license plate number and everything.
Yeah, which is, I mean, the kids did a great job there, I guess, and stuff. So, and it's interesting that he taught them how to do this for some reason, but yeah. What do you think of D'Angelo Barksdale?
He's okay. I mean, I think I don't know. He acts like he knows, or I think he acts like he's more mature than he is, or something. I think that's probably a function of being Avon Barksdale's cousin, probably, or nephew. Was it nephew?
Cousin or nephew?
Yeah, nephew. It's nephew.
Yeah, he's the nephew, I think.
Just because he's involved in this world, but I don't know. He doesn't really seem mature enough in some ways for the position that he seeks to hold. I don't know. Like it's like even in that first episode when he was like, "Yo, that was tight when you made that witness lie or whatever," and that's so naive. It's like, yeah, you think, like, it's like his uncle says, it's like, you think that's free? You think that just happens? Like we snap our fingers, and yeah, that costs money and time and everything. Like I don't think he seems to like understand the larger game of what's being done here. It just kind of what's more in front of him seems like. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, I think there are some parallels with Wallace there. As far, I mean, obviously he's higher up and farther along in the game than Wallace is, but he's got a kind of a certain naivete about the whole thing. Which, and on the other hand, I think there's sides of him that we have not seen on screen, as far as like the murder he did in the towers or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, probably was not a very flattering or naive-looking thing.
Sure. Was that the tap?
Yeah, well, okay. Put a pin in that one. I'm not going to say anything about it because we're going to come back to that situation probably later this season.
Oh, really? Okay.
And there's going to be some more revelations about what happened there that's going to, muddy the waters a little bit further. So that'll be interesting for you to see, too. We'll have to hear your thoughts on that, too. But,
I did like when McNulty and Bunk are going through the crime scene there. That was a good scene.
Yeah, the fuck scene. Yeah, it felt a little bit self-indulgent from like a directorial or writerly aspect to me, but people often comment on that scene, like, as far as like an acting class. Look at this. There's like a 5-minute scene almost with two detectives saying nothing but one word, and look at how many meanings it has and how they use it, and how they just have this secondhand language to each other where they can communicate on almost a non-verbal level. And it's like, yeah, that's all interesting, but it did still feel a little bit self-indulgent to me. But I don't know. It was it was a good scene. They show you how they reconstruct the scene and how they figure out what happened in this murder scene, which the other detective never bothered to figure out. And also, I think they did really good foreshadowing because they had D'Angelo Barksdale tell the story of the murder beforehand, so you know what to look for. But you got to remember, the detectives who are there, they have no idea what happened, and so they're really having to piece it together cold. And that was the murder of Avon Barksdale's college girlfriend, or a girlfriend he has who was in college, who got murdered,
right?
Apparently by D'Angelo. What about Avon and Stringer?
That's a good, like you said, that's like you compared it to Jay-Z and DMX, and I think that's probably an apt comparison. Stringer Bell, I did like the scene where McNulty follows him and he goes to the community college and he's taking like microeconomics or whatever, and then he's like trying to apply these like lessons about elastic businesses and non-elastic businesses to like his like front business that's really not even supposed to be a business, but he's trying to make it run like a business, and he's trying to be a legitimate businessman in some way and turn his dirty money clean or something. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. One scene I did like from Avon was at the basketball game when he dresses down the referee for
yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's like, don't just let a person get in your face and tell you what to do. Get out of my face.
Oh, he's like telling him not to listen to him right then. He's like, what? You are crazy, man.
I think he wanted at first. I think he wanted to, make the guy back down and change the call. But then I think he changed his mind, and he doesn't want to lose face out there. But I don't know, man. It was acting. That was real acting. I tell you what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that guy. What's his name? Wood Harris, I think, is the name of the actor. He's phenomenal in this.
Yeah.
So as so many of them are.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I think is great about this show is just like, this show, and it'll continue more and more in later seasons. Not so much the second season, but continuing into the third, fourth, and fifth seasons. It's just like a who's who of African American actors at that time, and continuing today. A lot of these actors have gone on to do, Idris Elba has done Pacific Rim, and he's done one about child soldiers in Africa and stuff. A couple of the guy who plays. Let me think. Okay, there's a guy who's going to come later named Cuddy, and he's going to be a huge character later too. And he wound up on The Walking Dead. The actor who plays D'Angelo winds up on The Walking Dead. There's a guy who's going to be a politician later who's going to wind up on Game of Thrones. A lot of the people who were in the Wire orbit wound up going on to a lot of other big shows. And the guy who does, he's Littlefinger on the Game of Thrones, and he's a good actor too.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a good job in both shows. I would say the Walking Dead actors, I know they're great actors because I've seen this show, but The Walking Dead is just not a show that demands great acting, as I may have mentioned before. In fact, it almost precludes it. This show is kind of like a who's who of African American actors who just act their asses off in the show. And just these are people who you didn't see them in a lot of movies. You didn't see them in anything big before this.
Mm-hmm.
But here they are playing totally three-dimensional characters, who have complex inner lives, complex motivations, and in some ways in a lot of ways are more compelling than the police officers and in some cases they are the police officers, but I would say the criminals in this show are almost more compelling than a lot of the police officers in some ways.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Michael B. Jordan is another one, the guy who plays Wallace. He has been in some stuff after this that have been pretty amazing. So he's a great actor.
I'm definitely familiar with the name, and I'm not too familiar with what he's been in. I've probably seen some other things that he's been in, but I don't know. You'll never see character arcs like you see on this show. Like when you go through the seasons, like where it starts and stuff. And and you might think like right now that it's always just going to be this group put together with The Wire, just going after different groups. And that's not totally the case. Like after the first season, these guys get kind of cast to the four winds and stuff. And they don't all, get together necessarily in the future and, reconstruct the whole team and do it all over again for a different group. It's like these people go to different places and we follow a lot of them, most of them in different places and stuff. And so, I would say like the first episode or two of the show were almost even a little slow, although they were laying a lot of groundwork. my mom agrees. Like when we were talking about this, she said, I said, well, Bob had some trouble getting into it at first. And she's like, yeah, I thought the first episode, she said, I'm surprised the show even got picked up after the first episode, because it was just like, it felt like it was going to be like another Law and Order or something, like just a very standard police procedural. And I said, yeah, and maybe that's the reason why it did get picked up. But at the same time, like after that first episode or two, they really started just adding layers upon layers. And a lot of people say this show's like more like a novel than a TV show, because it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. It's kind of like, Dickensian or Dixonian, or I don't know what you call it. Charles Dickens.
Yeah. Right.
What about the police officers?
Let's see. Who else have we talked about? Who's the lesbian one?
Kima.
Yeah, Kima.
Greg,
yeah, Kima. Yeah, I like her. She was funny. I like when they're on the roof and she's like, "You have no creep to you, do you?"
Yeah, she's a character. And I tell you what, you're on episode 9. Watch episode 10, because she has a big role. No spoilers.
Yeah. Anyway, I like Kima. She's a good character. Let's see who else is there. Even who's the guy above Bunk and McNulty's boss? The really
Balls.
Yeah, I don't like him. He's mean.
Yeah, but he's kind of funny though, isn't he? Well, he and that what's the other guy's name? The really fat guy.
Yeah, I hate that guy. So gross.
Landsman or something, I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, he's also kind of like, these guys are kind of like, a couple of almost comic relief characters in like kind of a hellscape of this department. They just exist to torment everybody who works there.
Yeah. Who's the one mustachioed African American police? He's like a captain, or he's like one of the higher ups.
Okay, hold on.
At that party, he goes to schmooze with the state senator or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and the state senator. Oh my God! Believe me, this guy is Clay Davis is a character. We're gonna get to know him in the future too. And Clay Davis he's comedy gold. He's got this thing. He's got this punchline you're gonna hear. He's crazy. But yeah, Rawls.
I think it's
not Rawls.
No, Rawls is. Hold on.
Rawls is the guy at the top of above Bunk and McNulty. What's his name? Damn it! I should know his name. It's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, he's an interesting character too, and he'll be around. Yeah.
Oh no, Rawls is the one that was. Yeah, he's mean.
Yeah.
Let's see, who am I thinking of though? Hold up.
Hold on, I'm gonna pull up Wikipedia on my iPad here. But yeah, let's see, the Wire characters. Man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. And I mean, the fact that we know all these characters' names and stuff, like, hold on one second. What is his name? Hold on, he's not in the first group. Hold on, let me get some more. Okay, hold on one second. Let me see. Her, Cuddy.
Oh wait, hold up. It's Burrell.
Yeah, Commissioner Burrell.
Okay. I think since I've been a reporter before, and I've spoken to people that are kind of higher up in police departments and stuff, that character seems very real to me. He's the very much the politician / police officer. You find a lot of county sheriffs or whatever will kind of have the same kind of, I don't know, kind of attitude. I don't know. It's there's a lot of glad handing. There's a lot of trying to smooth things over, trying to be presentable, but not always necessarily doing what they should. I don't know. It's kind of it's an archetypal character, and it's very relatable for some reason. Just the way his face looks, the expressions he makes, even just kind of looks like I don't know. It's very. He's just a great actor. Like Frankie Faison is the actor's name, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I felt like a very I was like, oh man, I know this guy. Like whenever he was on screen, like.
Where do we get your first face to face with Clay Davis?
Okay.
Because Clay Davis is a.
I think I might even know his catchphrase already, but.
Yeah, shit. I can't even do it right, but no, it's an all-purpose catch-all phrase for him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he is. I don't think he's a dirty politician.
Well, we've already caught his assistant or whatever coming out of the towers with 20,000, right? So.
Yeah, and Burrell told him drop it, give him the money back, let him go, light it up,
exactly,
close down the whole thing, and then they got the judge to go back and say no, you gave me 2 months on the water, you're not closing it down, and so he's like, again, the motivations and the kind of the incentives and stuff that these people all have. Also, I mean, as long as we're talking about, extremely ambitious African American police / political, what can we say, aspirants. What do you think of Cedric Daniels?
Which one's that?
He's the one who's in charge of The Wire. Very skinny, very serious guy, very buttoned down.
Yeah, he's pretty intense. Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah, he's pretty intense. Yeah.
Yeah, intense is definitely the word for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think of him, his wife? They've had a few conversations, and we'll get to know more about his wife later, too.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like he tries to do the right things sometimes. I don't know. It seems like he's just trying to go along to get along or cover for people, or I don't know. It seems like he's kind of trying to play all sides at all times sometimes, and he doesn't really stick his neck out unless he's forced to or something. I don't know. It seems like he's kind of been forced into a lot of situations, and he doesn't really, I don't know. He wants to be a leader, but he doesn't want to rock the boat either, somehow.
Yeah, I would say, he definitely has some aspirations and stuff, and he's definitely a creature of the institution that he's a part of. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to rock that too much.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, and his wife seems like she's more trying to be a society person and trying to be she's on seems like she's on these boards or whatever, and I don't know. I think she wants him to be more of a leader than he is somehow. So
I don't know. I think, when the wife is on those boards for a reason, mm-hmm. I'll say. And I think, we're going to see more of as a couple, their ambitions here in future seasons and stuff. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
I'll tell you who else kind of squicks me out is Weebay.
Yeah.
That guy is gross. Especially after that thing with the stripper, that was ugh.
Yeah.
But he's another person that's a very realistic person that I feel like you would see in real life, but it just you wouldn't want to know that person. It's just
Yeah. I mean, all of the muscle guys for the Barksdale crew, Weebay, Stinkum,
mm-hmm.
Bird,
mm-hmm.
All these guys. As we go into future seasons, to some degree, some of them will, still be around. Obviously, Stinkum is already dead.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Omar got him.
Yep.
After they were rolling up on the Scars corner where they were going to take over that corner, and Stinkum was going to get to hold that corner for himself and, take some of the profits for himself
mm-hmm.
as kind of a part owner of that region and stuff. But yeah, all of the Barksdale muscle is, these guys will almost kind of pass into legend in future seasons
mm-hmm.
to some degree. Some of them will still be around in some capacity, but yeah, the thing is, when I first watched it, most of them did not really make an impression on me. But then, like, later on, I was kind of like, when I rewatched the season again the second time, I was much more curious about these guys at the beginning. And, like, a lot of them, they're kind of ciphers. Like, Weebay's got a little bit more personality and a little bit more screen time, I think. But, like, Stinkum and Bird don't really, to some degree. But, yeah, it is... Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, later on we're going to meet other crews, including, like, Proposition Joe's East Side people, as well as some people who come up later in later seasons and stuff. And you're going to get to compare, just how different crews are runs and kind of like how they're run, how the culture of these different crews is. And I swear to God, at times you'll almost be nostalgic for the Barksdale crew, as crazy as that sounds right now. So it'll seem almost quaint the way these guys were doing things, because later there's going to be some crazy, insane, violent shit happen, and you're just going to be like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I like the most about the larger point of the show is that it seems like I mean, these people are running around and doing all this, but I mean, even if they like take all these people down, won't somebody else just come up and do the same thing? I mean, isn't that like inevitable that somebody's going to be this person? Like, if there's going to be a vacuum, right? Somebody's going to fill the vacuum no matter who's there. I mean, and there's institutional reasons why they can't stop this, but it just seems so futile. And I mean, I know that's probably an easy point to make, but it just seems like, you take down the Barksdale crew and, here comes someone else probably. I mean, they're still going to have to service those needs or whatever, so.
Yeah, I mean, you got Bubbles out there,
Sure.
And Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got needs, man.
You got to feed the monkey.
Yeah. Lebowski reference. Yeah. Well, and I think in the third season they're going to tackle that a little bit, as far as like a police officer named Bunny, Howard Bunny something or other, who gets fed up with some of the pressures put on him, where there's kind of like a schizophrenic aspect to the police's motivation as far as what they're actually trying to do, and what a good outcome in the situation looks like, and what a livable solution for everybody is. And it goes almost into a kind of a fantasy where the thing that is done is almost not realistic, but it's kind of like a thought experiment almost, or something. And I don't want to get too much into that, but yeah, I mean, obviously, this is Baltimore in America, and the police's job is not to eliminate all drugs and solve all the problems of society. It's just to catch the people when they get big, and to tamp down on things, and to like they said at the beginning when they started this thing, they wanted to put drugs on a table and just say, look, we got these drugs and we caught a few people who were dealing them, and we're continuing to be an effective police force for the city here. And so it's a question of motivations and incentives for the institutions and the people within the institutions, as far as like why there isn't any thinking about a longer term solution, or maybe there's just no way for them to even do that, based on what their mission is and what their parameters are, kind of as a police department.
Right.
So it is it's a wild, just like, I hope by talking about this you're engaging with it in a new way, or just kind of seeing that like the show is operating on levels that you may not even be aware of while you're consciously watching,
Well, I mean, that's what's frustrating, is that you want to get it right away, but I mean, it does take, I guess, some time, and I do think probably it would be good to go back and rewatch it right away, because there's already scenes and stuff I want to go back and rewatch just to be like, wait a second, what just happened? Like, and I don't really know what's going on right now, but I might later, I guess. I don't know. So
yeah, well, like I said before, watch the whole thing through once just to get it all fresh, and then come back a second time and try to understand in more depth, because you will, especially after you've seen the later seasons and stuff, and how some of the characters interact, where they go and what they were trying to do and stuff. I mean, it'll all become a lot more clear after you've watched it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
What do you think of Bubs?
I like Bubs. He's fun. I mean, fun may not be the right word, but he's got a bounce to him.
Yeah, he has a certain charm.
Yeah, absolutely. I did like when he's like working at the fruit stand randomly, like on a day's work for an on-a-day's pay. Again, this is like literally the only time I've ever seen you work anywhere. So.
Yeah, and it is kind of played for laughs to some degree that like this guy he's trying to bring up, Johnny or whatever, is like just he says like that boy has no luck at all or something. And it is true. Like Bub has got a hell of a life. He's got a miserable fucking existence, but he's got a certain charm and he's got a certain amount of luck. Mm-hmm. He carries the day most of the time.
Oh yeah, Johnny's just the most tragic figure in the show. Almost, ugh.
Yeah, well, it's he's gonna have an arc. He has an arc.
Mm-hmm.
The characters it's something that is just something you just enjoy immensely as you continue to watch, and it's something you definitely enjoy on rewatches and stuff. You see where the characters kind of begin, and then you kind of see where they go. And sometimes it's thrilling. It's great. It's inspirational. Sometimes it's maddening. Sometimes it's fucking depressing. It's the show is. I mean, like emotionally, it's just And the thing is, like when people say like Breaking Bad is the best show ever made, I'm like, Breaking Bad has like 5 characters. You got Walter White, you got Jesse, you've got Skyler, you've got like Saul, you've got a string of like big bads per season or whatever, and I don't know, it's just like compared to The Wire, it's like, this show has got probably like 50 main characters or something by the end of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And most, like 70 to 80% of them are extremely compelling.
Mm-hmm.
And fully fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
And believable for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I understand even the people that I don't like, I'm not necessarily supposed to like, but it's like they are people that need to be there in the story because they would be people who would be there in real life too, so.
Yeah. And some of the characters you don't like, you will like, in spite of yourself. Mm-hmm. Some of the characters you think you like, or like, Jimmy McNulty, like I said, I think he's a pretty good actor, but I think, I think there's this idea that British actors can come over to America and just take all our roles or something.
They're taking our jobs.
Yeah. We're going to build a wall, a big, beautiful wall. Wall just got 10 feet higher. I don't know why. This is what happens when you don't like the wall.
Exactly.
It's like, but like, I'm just saying, like, and some of them can definitely pull it off. Like, like I've said, Idris Elba, Stringer Bell, does an outstanding job. And the entire time, like, I watched the season until I checked Wikipedia, I had no idea the guy was British. Mm-hmm. But like Jimmy McNulty, like his character, like there's a lot of points where I feel like his British accent is just, tearing up the seams of his character and threatening to come out full blown and stuff. And it's like, and actually there's a guy I work with now who's British, and Jimmy McNulty is very much like that guy in a lot of ways, I would say. And so to me, I almost can't watch Jimmy McNulty right now because he just seems too British to me. But like, so Jimmy McNulty is a character that I have a complicated, viewer relationship with, as far as he's not my favorite character. I don't think he's the most, he's kind of like he's just kind of like a guy who sets a lot of things in motion. Basically.
Yeah.
Kind of like
I think that's very true, and I think that's true for other shows too. I can think of several other shows where the supposed main character or protagonist is not even close to the most interesting or compelling character in the show. It's just that their story allows the rest of the story to happen because you view it initially through their eyes, but you move on to other things as the story moves on. But like once you've moved on, you're almost annoyed that they're still a part of the story. Another show I can think of like that is Orange is the New Black. I don't know how much you've watched of that.
I think I watched the first season. I might have watched the second or part of the second season. I can't remember, but yeah.
But I also feel like he's the main white woman that's in that show. Like she's not even close. She's probably the least interesting character of any of the characters in the show. But it's the fact that she goes to prison initially that allows us to enter this world, and I feel like that's just like kind of become a staple of kind of prestige TV, is that the supposed main character is not really the one we're supposed to be focusing on. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, I don't think it's true for all shows.
No, certainly not everyone.
There are several shows like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it can be very frustrating. Like I feel like you probably haven't watched Fear the Walking Dead at all, but like. Mm-mm. The main character, the son and the mother, well, they just killed the son, spoiler alert, and which is, I don't know. I mean, he was the main character of the first episode, and so that's like, but I guess the actor wanted out, and so they had to write him out, which is bullshit, because he thinks he's got a career now. He thinks he's going to be like, the next Johnny Depp and stuff, and we'll see. But like they killed the stepfather figure, who was actually an interesting, compelling character with a decent actor behind him. And they left the mother and the son and the daughter in. And the mother's like annoying, kind of unbelievable. I don't believe her character. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I think the show has a fundamental confusion about which characters are necessary for their show to continue, basically, and it's like which characters are compelling and stuff, and and it maddens me when I watch like bad shows, and then you read the comments and stuff on articles about them, and they're like, I really like her character, she's a badass, and it's like, she's a terrible actor, and her character is poorly written. It's like, motherfucker, wake up, watch some good TV, and then come back to this shit and be honest about it. It's like, so yeah. I mean, how do you think the show, like, how would you compare it so far to, for example, The Sopranos or something?
In what way? Just like
as prestige television, I guess. I mean, I know we haven't even seen the first full story arc, so it's kind of hard to go that big, because we've both seen 7.5 seasons of Sopranos multiple times, but I think we have to remember the first season of Sopranos had some clunky moments, right? Mm-hmm.
I mean, by the end, I think The Sopranos was kind of spinning its wheels a little bit, because it was kind of trapped in that kind of character arc, and Tony and his beef with New York and all that stuff. I just felt like it was kind of like, okay, I feel like we've trod this ground before. I don't really feel like we're breaking anything new here. But as far as like prestige TV, they came up around the same time, or maybe I think The Sopranos was a little bit before this, wasn't it?
Yeah, like by 2 or 3, 4 years maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like The Sopranos opened the door, because obviously I don't think there was any other shows like that before this. Like, it's like kind of root for the bad guy type thing, or at least understand where they're coming from, or understand how someone could be that person. So I think it's almost unfair to compare it, because I almost feel like The Wire is walking in its footsteps in some ways, even though maybe in some ways not. But I do feel like that was kind of like The Sopranos was a groundbreaking show. Tony was a groundbreaking character. You never really saw the anti-hero as the protagonist before that. Obviously, I think Walter White in Breaking Bad kind of follows in those footsteps in some ways. although it's like you see him go from quote unquote good to being bad, but and kind of Tony Soprano was always bad. He's just kind of the charming sociopath the whole time. So
yeah. Well, but again, I think the brilliance of The Sopranos, I think, is that Tony is a very charming character, right? And and he's fat, he's balding, he huffs and wheezes more and more as the show goes on. But people still bought him as a plausible sex symbol to some degree, right? Like women were like, Tony's kind of hot sometimes. He's so alpha or whatever. But I had a huge problem with the Breaking Bad just because I didn't buy the central good to bad thing with this guy. I think a guy like that, middle class high school science teacher who has lived his life by the book, I don't think that he can make that transition as naturally as he did in the show. And, I know they tried to muddy the waters a lot here and there and show the steps. And, it's a brilliantly directed show. It's well acted, but I just didn't buy it for some reason. It's even I know he had cancer and he's going to die, but that doesn't mean he can go toe to toe with hardcore gangsters who have been doing this shit since the day they were born, practically,
right,
and hold his own and come out on top. I just don't buy it.
Well, I think my biggest problem with that aspect of the show was that it's supposed to be him, quote unquote, breaking bad, going from being quote unquote good to being quote unquote bad. But at the same time, it's really they're just revealing him to be kind of as terrible as he already was, because there are several points in the show where he's given an out, he's given an out to this dilemma that he's supposedly facing with this huge medical cost that he's facing. Like that one guy that, he invented that thing with or worked with earlier in his life, and then he offers him money to go through and he turns it down. That was a moment that he could have, given up this drug kingpin, fantasy that he was living in. Another moment was when, he is told that his cancer is in remission, or that it's being beaten back, and then he tears apart the bathroom or whatever because he's mad because now he's Walter White, he's Heisenberg, and yeah, exactly, he's mad that he can't be Heisenberg, or he doesn't have this reason to be Heisenberg. It's well, if that's how you felt, it's that's what you were gonna do, you know what I mean? You don't need this external reason to do this anymore. So it's really you're going to be this person, so it's really not much of an arc at the end. It's just really pulling back the layers and showing who you already were. And then at the end, when he is surprised when his son is mad at him for this, and it's you're surprised that he's mad and doesn't want to have a relationship with you here at the end. It's no, he doesn't. That was not as that's probably the least believable part. I think, like you said, it's a great show. I love the direction. Some of those episodes are some of the best episodes of television ever. The train one I thought was just amazing. That was almost like a short film. I'm
gonna have to rewatch it again to be sure, because I think I kind of watched it. I didn't binge it so much as I went season to season, and it's amazing how much you lose between seasons, right?
Yeah,
it's right. They jump back into the middle of things you're supposed to have just watched the last episode last week, and even week to week you lose a lot. It's just I don't know. Binging is the way that a certain kind of television, complex television, was meant to be watched, I think. So.
Well, yeah, and it was fun to be at the end of Breaking Bad, to be caught up with it and just binging on it and just going from week to week and kind of getting it as it came out and kind of getting it in an avalanche. Because Ash and I watched 3 or 4 seasons in a couple weeks, and then we were caught up with it as the last 5 or 6 episodes were playing in real time. So that was fun to just be caught up and oh my gosh, it's like a waterfall. It's what's next? You can't stop here, But I thought Jesse had more of a character arc than Walter did, honestly, in that show. So
yeah, I mean Jesse's kind of the conscience or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You root for him.
And yeah, you want to see him do good, and you hope he does good. And at the end of the game, you think he did pretty good.
Absolutely.
Paraphrase dazzled there,
right?
But I don't know. I mean, I know it's kind of sacrilegious to say, but I always kind of felt Breaking Bad was a little bit two-dimensional in a way, because it's the argument is like, oh, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Oh, he's got two sides. But it's like The Wire, it's like, okay, we got 50 characters and they've all got like 5 sides. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you start doing the math on that.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, like the inner demons and the turmoil of one man in Breaking Bad, and kind of like this great man theory where it's all about him all the time, and all the other characters just kind of like spiraling around him. It's just like, it doesn't feel real to me. It's like, this show, like, I mean, Jimmy McNulty apparently he's the main character at the outset, but things rapidly spiral to where you've got a lot of characters you care about more than him, and they're more compelling characters, and there's, I mean, like, there's a lot of things you care about. Like, is that stripper, is she gonna go with the cops, and is she going to leave the strip club, or is she going to go back in there and she's going to tell, like, Avon Barksdale and them that these guys are on it? Are Herc and Carver going to be bad cops, or are they going to be good cops? Is Presbelusky, he halfway blinded a kid by punching him on the car, and then he covered it up with, Daniels' help. I mean, is he redeemable or is he not? Kima's, living with her intellectual girlfriend there in the nice apartment and everything, but she's, continuing to be a cop, but she's kind of studying for like a law degree or something. And, is she gonna get up above the streets here, this kind of work, or is she not? Is like, what's going on in Chief Daniels' past? Is he corrupt? Is he good? He's straight-laced as hell. Is he going to stand up for the Wire? Is he going to go with the organization? What's going to happen with McNulty and Bunk? I mean, are they going to be friends in the future? What's going on with Wallace? Wallace is kind of like having a crisis of conscience there about conscience on the drug trade. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen with D'Angelo? Mm-hmm. Like, what's going to happen between Stringer and Avon? It's like, what's going on with the East Side? Like, I mean, there's a million different angles to this show. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It just, like, to me, like, Breaking Bad never reached this level of complexity in a lot of ways, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. If I had to make an overgeneralized statement about The Sopranos compared to The Wire, though, as far as, like, the different sides of characters, I don't know if it's so much that you see different sides of characters, because you kind of do in The Sopranos. You see, like, Tony's, coaching, he's on the sidelines for Meadows' soccer game, and that's, like, supposed to, show him on this domestic side, but eventually it's like his gangsterdom still, like, bleeds over into that, because they then, like, try to pressure the coach that's, like, having sex with Allie, the other, soccer player, into, like, staying and not taking the job in Rhode Island or whatever, and it's like, even his, like, brute animal nature still, like, bleeds over into that. You're just supposed to view it from a slightly different way because you saw him on the sidelines. I don't know, it's like you never really get away too much from who these people are, whereas I feel like, in that one scene when McNulty follows, Stringer Bell to college, and it's almost like that's like the most shocking scene that you see, at least I thought it was, in the episodes I watched, because it's like you see him in class, like, answering questions and being all studious, and it's like, oh, whoa, this guy was, like, in the back of a strip club counting drug money not 10 minutes ago, and it's like now he's in this, like, community college with, like, a polo shirt on, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, he really is, like, living a different life outside of this. So I feel like it's in The Sopranos, maybe it's like you see the same actions but from a different angle, and you could see it as charming or you could see it as understandable or not, but it's almost like they can't help but keeping their, everything bleeds over. Carmela's engagement ring is stolen, you know what I mean? Yeah. And she knows that, and there's no like Tony's not taking economics classes at the city college. He is who he is, but you just see him as charming or not, or a family man, but a family man who would also, like, hurt you. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what about, like, Avon Barksdale as a family man too? I mean, like, we've obviously seen the menacing side, the brutal side, the kind of trifling side in a way. Mm-hmm. but also like the part where he's at the family barbecue in the church or somewhere or something, and D'Angelo just gotten out of he got picked up for almost no reason.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
They got him to write that letter apologizing to Gant, who'd been murdered, for witnessing against him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know exactly what happened, but he starts writing that letter before the lawyer Levy, I think,
yeah,
picks him up and like smacks him around, like, why, why do I have to keep telling you people this? Don't say anything. Don't write anything. Get out of here. And he's like smacking him around almost. I'm like, dude, that's like the boss's nephew.
Yeah.
He's like taking a lot of liberties with him there. And who are you? And believe me, we're going to get to know Levy a little bit better later too. And he's like a total kind of like a Michael Cohen case type of situation.
Kind of fixer for the criminal.
Yeah, it's dirty. But after that scene, I was actually like worried about D'Angelo. I was like, man, he's going to be in all kinds of shit because the lawyer's this pissed off, and we know like the lawyer's doing this because he knows he's not going to face any problems from from Barksdale for taking these liberties with the nephew. And so I was like waiting for Avon to go off on him, but he doesn't really. He like kind of like gives him a little speech, and he's like, "Come on, let's go back to the party. Don't worry about it too much. Just don't do it again." And you really, and he's showing love to his nephew's baby and stuff, and his girlfriend and stuff, his baby's mama and stuff, and you really see like this just kind of like a human family side to Avon that is, not inauthentic, I would say.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that's true, for sure. But, well, I probably ought to get going here, but any final thoughts you want to leave us with before we finish out the first season of The Wire?
I don't know, man. Just keep watching. I mean, we're at episode 9 almost, and there's about 13 episodes in the first season, I think. So yeah, just keep watching. Probably we can do another episode here in a few nights, and
I'll probably be on to the second season by then. But yeah.
Well, trust me, we got to do an episode when we finish season 1 because it's it's building to something, and there's going to be plenty more to talk about in a couple days. Let's just say that. Gotcha. Because it's been a slow burn now, but like the last few episodes are just going to basically from episode 10, 9 or 10, I guess, whichever one. I think it's called The Price or The Cost or something. And once we see that one, it's going to be a fast burn all the way to the season finale. Yep.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm more into it than I was before, and I feel like I just need to, I guess, stay locked in for the long haul. But
yeah, has Ash been watching it too, or is she not really watching?
No, not really.
Okay.
Maybe the next time I watch, she'll be on board. But
okay. Not her kind of show, or is she just busy, or?
Probably not. Probably not her type of show, but maybe. I don't know. Give it a try.
I don't know, man. I think by the end of this show, you'd be just about willing to recommend it to anybody. So
okay.
We'll see how that goes.
All right.
Well, yeah, good to do this recap up to the episodes we've watched, and hopefully our listeners will. Hopefully we didn't spoil too much for them, but hopefully they'll be inspired to get into the show because it's, like I said, I think it's the best, if not one of the top 2 best TV shows ever made. And, that's about the strongest recommendation I can give. So, yeah, Omar coming, yo. Omar stepping. Yeah, Omar. Oh boy.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh boy, there's a lot more Omar coming too.
Good.
So, all right. Well, Bob, we'll continue. To be continued later this week, probably. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
All right. Later on.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoy this podcast, there are several ways to support it. Join the Rob Burgess Show mailing list. Go to tinyletter.com/The Rob Burgess Show and type in your email address. Then respond to the automatic message. I have a Patreon account which can be found at patreon.com/Rob Burgess Show Patreon. I hope you'll consider supporting in any amount. Also, please make sure to comment, follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review everywhere the podcast is available, including iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Facebook, Twitter, Internet Archive, TuneIn, and RSS. The official website for the podcast is www.therobburgessshow.com. You can find out more about me by visiting my website, www.thisburgess.com. And if you have something to say, record a voice memo on your smartphone and send it to therobburgessshow@gmail.com. Include voice memo in the subject line of the email. Until next time.